New reports coming in tonight from the Middle East. A coalition of countries led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt are poised for a ground invasion into Yemen. Fighter jets have already unleashed devastating airstrikes on rebels overrunning the area. We've been showing these pictures all day. Could the crisis escalate into a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia? We're asking former UN ambassador and Fox News contributor John Bolton. John, welcome back to the show. Give us the latest on Yemen.
Well, I think it has been a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia for some time. This al-Houthi coalition that's taken over the capital of Yemen, in effect dividing the country, is a proxy, and it's at the back door of Saudi Arabia and the other oil-producing monarchies on the Arabian Peninsula. So it's a very desperate situation. I think the Saudis have waited too long, but it's significant that the Egyptian government is in there with them. There are reports of Egyptian troops already in the Bab al-Mandeb, which is the strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. I think that's potentially significant. And it stems in part, I think, because the Saudis and other Arabs have given up on the notion that the United States is going to do anything significant about Iran's nuclear weapons program.
You see Yemen there, right on the border of Saudi Arabia. They've got to be nervous about what's going on there. How much is this really about the Sunnis and the Shiites not getting along together? Or is this more political than that?
Well, it's very complex inside Yemen. There's no doubt about it. The state has effectively disintegrated. The al-Houthi are now allied with a former president of Yemen who was once an ally of the United States, President Saleh, former President Saleh. But I think the real question here is the conflict between Iran on the one hand and its Shia and Shia-related allies around the region, the Saudis and the Sunnis on the other. It's religious, it's geopolitical, it's military, but at the source of it is the threat of the Iranian nuclear weapon, which is an existential threat not just to Israel, but for the minds of the monarchs producing the oil on that side of the Gulf, to them too.
You mentioned the fact that we're sitting on the sidelines here, the president's sitting on his hands, basically, and John Boehner coming out today and criticizing him for that. Should we be taking a more active role?
Well, I think we should do what we can to aid the Saudis. There's no reason they and the Egyptians and others shouldn't carry the burden of the military action here. But this is more a question of politics rather than what specifically we're going to do militarily. The fact is, an Iran led by fanatics who have been the central bankers of international terrorism for 35 years, now on the verge of being legitimated politically by the United States and having their uranium enrichment capacity legitimated by the United States, are a direct threat to these oil-producing countries, friends of the United States, friends of an effort to get a settlement in the Middle East. So this has introduced instability like we haven't seen probably in 40 or 50 years.
And, of course, Israel surrounded, nervous, worried about Iran getting the bomb. On and on it goes. Does it escalate from here, and what happens next?
Well, I think the Saudis, the Egyptians, and others really see it as their objective to destroy the al-Houthi coalition, to try and stitch back together some kind of government in Yemen that's acceptable to them. I think they will have the military capability to do that. The real issue is not the fighting in Yemen, although I know it's roiled oil markets. The real issue is Iran's nuclear weapons. It has been, and it will be. Well,
and to that point, Ambassador Bolton, what next there? I have to say that I line up fully with the Israelis here. I would hate to see that country get nukes, but it seems like we are well on the road to that. Do you agree?
Yeah, the most likely outcome is that Iran gets nuclear weapons, and if that happens, so do the Saudis, so do the Egyptians, so do the Turks, and maybe others. It's a very bad situation. There are only two options, in my view. One is, the most likely is that Iran gets nuclear weapons. The second is that either Israel or the United States uses preemptive military force to prevent that from happening. I argued that this morning in a piece in the New York Times. Under the Obama administration, I see zero chance that the United States will use force, even if we sign this agreement with Iran tomorrow and they violate it on Saturday. So that's why the spotlight's on Israel, to see if they will act, as they have done twice before, against nuclear weapons programs in the hands of hostile states.
On and on it goes, and only getting more dramatic every day. Ambassador Bolton, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.